I was halfway through the book or three-quarters of the way through the book when in 2019, the youth climate movement showed up on the scene. And I thought to myself, yeah, these are the people I work with all the time. I'm not surprised this is happening at all. And it finally became understood at a mainstream level, at a register where everybody around the globe knew that young people had a unique claim on this problem. Of course, the psychology around our ability to think about the future is very telling here. When we think about exponential changes that are going to happen, which of course is what the science says about climate change, that these different metrics are going to happen at an exponential level, we human beings are not capable of imagining and understanding what exponential changes mean. So we have always, and of course our politics have even lagged on that, always not been able to visualize or imagine the kinds of effects that climate change is going to have as soon as they're going to happen.
I see.
And so because they're starting to be felt, we're feeling climate change as proxies, including the pandemic, including fires, including increased heat. Young people are saying climate change is happening right now to me.
I'm wondering, one of the things you say is even the deniers aren't actually deniers. They're just other things going on in their lives that intervene, right? So it's not like they feel so strongly about denial, but there are other things, the politics of their lives, right? And their jobs and where they live, right? Interfere with their capacity to have a lot of empathy for the movement, right?
Well, there's that too. I mean, let me put it a different way back at you. I think actually what's astonishing is not that there are climate deniers, but that there aren't more climate deniers, because quite frankly.
Why? That's funny.
Because the climate change, there's just no utility, no political utility, no economic utility. And I mean, if we reckon with climate change, we need to then do a lot of things differently. That feels very, very scary. Everything has to change. I'd say if you have climate anxiety and you didn't realize you did, then that is a different form of denial, isn't it? But if you have climate anxiety, that's because you're living in reality. So there's a sense of the doom and gloom being an accurate response to the world, right? So if you feel like, there's something wrong, it's because there is something wrong. And I think the danger is when we individualize that or locate the solution only, I have to adapt myself to this crazy world, right? That I'm the one with the pathology or I'm the one with the problem. And that's a real kind of classic American individualistic approach to solving problems. And I think the first thing that we do is we reshift that this is not a pathology in yourself. This is a reasonable response to what's happening out in the world, and not to be oversimplified, because in the book, I really challenge the idea of action and I challenge the idea of hope and I get kind of nuanced about it. But the solution to our anxiety, ironically, is to do things that are external to ourselves, plug in to do action. And so a lot of folks will write about from despair to empowerment or from anxiety to action, that there's a feedback loop around your anxiety and plugging into stuff. And how you do that and where you do that, those are all bigger questions. But the main thing is that you're not alone in that. And the solution, the antidote is the anxiety is not what ails you. It's the disconnection to other people who are doing this work. Now, the problem is that we don't necessarily need art all the time to go down the same old trope of urgency, 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 the world is going to end. What I'm trying to argue in my book is that actually has the effect, and psychologists show this, of turning people off and creating apathy. It does work for some people who are maybe not in the not caring category. But in the category of people who are care and concern, which now is something like 65% of Americans, okay, that's a lot. People who are caring, who are ready to plug in, who just need some direction on that front or need to figure out how to do the work, they need a different message. And I'd say that art would really have an effect on making sure that they could stay involved.
People in the scientific community, you're very good, frankly, this book as a field guide is how to explain things in a way that people normally would be resistant to it. That's your sweet spot, right? It's how do I turn my skills in humanities and work the science through it? Is that something that can be reconciled through your thinking for people who say, Leonardo DiCaprio accepts an award for environmental justice and he flies on his own jet and he lives in a house with 50 rooms and he lives there alone? How do, is there a way to understand that,
Yeah, I
or,
mean,
or accept it, or not care about it?
yeah, I suppose it doesn't bother me too much, but I'm more interested in the phenomenon of the critiques. So the same was said of Al Gore, you know, when Al
Yes.
Gore, after Al Gore produced An Inconvenient Truth shaped multiple generations of concern about this. He changed the entire discussion. And I might have not liked how he ended on small things you can do, but he was trying to speak to everybody needs some solutions at the end. So what are we going to put in there? You know? So that's just par for the course. And no one's actions are, you could look at anyone's life and there are impurities there, right? There's inconsistencies. We are not ideologically pure, and the politics of purity, we will all fail it, no matter what our concerns are. We can find hypocrisy in absolutely everybody around us. And I don't think that that's useful. And I think also, if people aren't convinced or care about what Leonardo DiCaprio or John Kerry are contributing, if they can't take the positive with the negative,
Yeah.
then they're already not convinced enough, right?
They're exploiting the hypocrisy.
They're exploiting the hypocrisy to make the case against climate change. And I'm just really not interested in those people, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say in the book, I'm interested in the people who already care and how we can make sure that they can do the
Good
work.
point.
There's nothing I'm seeing that suggests enough of a shift in anticipating this reality that I don't have actually that much enthusiasm about where we're heading. But what interests me more is then, so what? So is the answer then to not do this work? Think of all of these social movements. Think of Gandhi, think of Nelson Mandela, think of Martin Luther King, think of, many, many people who've had no evidence that what they were trying to do was going to come to pass, and they still did it. And I just fundamentally believe that we cannot be that instrumentalist about the motivations for what we engage in and our commitments. If we need to have some evidence that this will pan out in some good way, then it's kind of a lost cause.
What a wonderful answer, really. Just a great way to end the evening.